Well, this is Betting Weekly Extra Time Champions League edition. It is match day 5. On match day 4, 13 of the 16 fixtures were won by the home team, level staking all of those sides that played in front of their own crowd, resulted in a whopping 18-point profit to average odds and a return on investment of 112.5%. You're with Dan Roebuck. I'm putting no pressure whatsoever on our handicappers this week to emulate those numbers. With me, RJ, Will White, and Steve Wyss. Steve, the game is easy. Just bet the home teams. Is it a thing in the Champions League this season?
Good day to you, Dan, RJ, and Will. I'll tell you what, Dan, I really enjoy your stats on these shows that we do. You're a bit like, do you remember the Sky Sports cricket crew of Benedict, they used to call him? I think he still exists, but you're really good with these stats. I'm not actually sure down the years what the home win percentage is, say the last 10 years in general, but yeah, that does seem pretty high. And obviously it's helped when teams like Shakhtar win, who ironically not even at home. Look, when you're traveling further, right, as the European games are, in theory, I suppose there should be a stronger home advantage. I mean, MLS down the years, I think, has been like that. South American leagues. So I guess it logically would make quite a lot of sense.
Something to look at for the remaining match days and into the knockout stages, RJ, or just a bit of a quirk of match day 4 with that big Shakhtar win over Barcelona? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that the home sides have had the success, and based on matchups here, right? You have to look at who needs wins to advance, who needs wins to qualify for Europa spots, and there could be some matches that are somewhat meaningless for the home side. So you really have to factor in current status for each side when looking at before you just bet all the home sides.
A lot of home favourites this week. Will, I think it's either 13 or maybe even 14 of the matches. The home team is the favourite. Is it something you've looked at this week, or is it just game by game as usual for you?
It's game by game as usual. To your point, I do make a bigger adjust for home field advantage in European competition than I do in domestic competition. That 46.9% number doesn't really surprise me. That's kind of in line with the home advantage adjust I make myself. So, and it is quite a small sample size anyway, right? We're only 2/3 of the way through one season's worth of group games. It's not a huge sample size.
Yeah. Certainly you can massage the figures any way you want. That 46.9% slightly higher than the top 5 leagues in Europe. But if you played the home teams on match days 1, 2, and 3, you would have lost money every single time. Let's start our roundup of the selections. We are going to start with our only Tuesday early kickoff at 12:45. It is Shakhtar who take on Antwerp. Shakhtar, a little bit of support for them, -103. Antwerp +285, the draw +260. This is Group H. Will, if Shakhtar are going to qualify for the knockout stages, they're third at the moment. This feels must win for them, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. They're 3 points behind the 2 leading teams in the group, and they really do need to win this game if they stand any chance of qualifying for the next round. On the other hand, Antwerp, they need 2 wins. They need 2 wins. They need to win this game in particular by more than 2 goals to stand an outside chance at qualifying for the Europa League. So I think we're going to see an open game here, Dan. The first game between these two was very open. 5 goals, over 4 XG generated. I believe we were on under 2.75 that day. So we got found out there, but I think it's time to back the overs here. The game will be taking place at a neutral venue in Hamburg, but Shakhtar have been getting some really good support there with high attendances so far. In terms of the group standings, I think Antwerp are going to come into this with a certain amount of freedom. The pressure's kind of off. Yes, they haven't really performed as they'd like so far in the group stages. But I think they can play with a certain amount of freedom here. Shakhtar will be pushing for the win, given that the first leg was kind of under more, tentative kind of backdrop. And it was such an open attacking game with 5 goals. I'm struggling to see why the line is set at 2.5 here. I'd have had it closer to 3. My model believes it should be 2.75 with minus money on the over. So I'm happy to back the over 2.5 at -117.
Switch a tactic when it comes to Antwerp.
Can I just add something, Dan?
Go on, Steve.
I want to talk outrights here because we did the Champions League outright show, and there's several potential winners that could come in for the next 2 match days. Unfortunately, this one is going to be a loser for me in this group. It might be my worst.
I can't believe you're highlighting it, Steve. But go on.
Well, I will, because Antwerp have been horrendous, haven't they? They're like the Carolina Panthers, aren't they, of the Champions League, or dare I even say it, RJ, the New England Patriots. But I can't believe how bad they've been. To be honest, I thought they'd offer something. It's not that hard a group, but yeah, maybe they got a bit more freedom now.
Yeah, we have got 1 or 2 outright picks that might cop this match week as well. I was going to save it until match week 6, but Steve's dived in with one that's already, unfortunately, fallen by the wayside. Antwerp, one of 2 clubs yet to get a point in the group stages. Let's move on to one of Steve's selections. This is a really good group. We've all talked about this over the course of the Champions League this season. It's Milan, Dortmund, Paris Saint-Germain and Newcastle, of course. We're going to take Milan, Dortmund first of all. Group F. 3 points between first and fourth. Milan plus 104 here, Steve. Dortmund plus 265. Dortmund top, but if Milan win, they go above them. Dortmund, as we found to our hot dog cost at the weekend, I was just about to pull the trigger on the text when Gladbach were 2-0 up at the weekend. Unfortunately, Dortmund came back to deny us there with our double chance play. What are your thoughts here, and just how difficult has this group been to predict?
Well, Dan, there's a lot at stake in this group in terms of outrights as well. I think myself and Daniele Fisichella had several interested picks. You know how I said before that Gladbach game that I couldn't really work Dortmund out. Well, I've actually decided. I think I've made an opinion of them. I don't think they're very good. I really don't. And they were really, really lucky in that Gladbach game. You know, Gladbach were all over them at 2-0 up. It looked like it was going to become 3. And then just like one freak counter-attack got them back in the game. And then Gladbach did what Gladbach do. And they do give you chances. If they play like that here, AC Milan are going to beat them. And that's the pick I like. AC Milan straight on the money line at plus 102. I just think they're the better team. They are going to be missing, unfortunately, Rafael Leao. They've got Musa suspended. They've got a couple of other injuries. But Dortmund have Felix and Mecha out as well. So in the midfield area, at least it balances itself out. Dortmund, they've done a lot better in this group than I thought they would. I don't know. Looking back, have they beaten Newcastle twice and actually kept 3 straight clean sheets? I'm not entirely sure because I don't rate the defence. As I say, I think some recent performances from Dortmund outside the Champions League have been very questionable. You know, Stuttgart battered them. They showed their soft underbelly against Bayern in the Klassiker. So I think AC Milan, we saw them really raise their level against PSG in the last game. The crowd got behind them. It's not a must-win for them, but really they could do with the 3 points because their last trip to St. James's Park will not be easy. So I think Milan are going to be fired up. I think they're going to show the passion like we did against PSG. And they're going to show they've got European experience as well. I think that's where Dortmund were fortunate against Newcastle. Newcastle don't have the Champions League experience, but Milan do. They've got a lot of players, canny players. And, the price isn't amazing, but it is plus money. So I think straight on the nose, AC Milan for me in this one, Dan.
Yeah, plus 104 now, just inched out just ever so slightly. In the same group, Paris Saint-Germain against Newcastle Tuesday. This is 3 p.m. Eastern, as the Milan game is, and we've got plenty of opinion on this game from all 3 of our handicappers. We've got one official pick. Come to Will first with this, because it's been interesting to watch Newcastle's price in every single game so far in the Champions League. Will, they were favourites to beat Paris at home. I think this is the biggest price that they've been all season in all competitions. And I know that the price has changed because Newcastle are now plus 430. Paris Saint-Germain were minus 173, now minus 157. So I don't know how much that has affected your play because you are siding with PSG. Just give us your thoughts on the way that Newcastle's price has sort of swung one way and then the other. Is it just injury related, do you think? And this just seems big just in the context of their season.
Yeah, this is this pick is quite counter to my normal kind of methodology. I think going back a few weeks or, well, maybe more like a month or two, I would have been looking to back Newcastle here, maybe plus 3/4 of a goal kind of thing, like we did in the first match between these two, albeit both teams have very big home advantages. And I think that's a factor here. But really, everything just lines up here for a PSG win for me. Newcastle are just so depleted in terms of injuries and suspensions. They're missing so many players that are potential starting 11 candidates for them in Callum Wilson, Longstaff, Botman, Tonali, Byrne, Anderson, Barnes, Murphy, and now Willock went down at the weekend. You know, they're going to be so stretched that they'll probably have to play the same starting 11 from the weekend against Chelsea. How much energy are those guys going to have? Bruno and Joe Linton were away with Brazil in the international break. Bruno played both matches, I think, but for Brazil in that time. Had a great game over the weekend, but to ask them to go again in Paris, away from home, in a big Champions League game. Lewis Miley, 17 years old, likely to be starting here, unless Eddie Howe mixes up the formation, as he's been known to do in Champions League so far this season. We all know about PSG's home record, particularly in European competition. It's very intimidating. It is an intimidating place to go, and PSG will want to get their qualification pretty much ensured with a win here. Newcastle can't really sit back either. You know, they kind of need to get something here. They probably need to get a win, and you know, that's just going to open them up to PSG's weapons, really, in the transition and the counter. And you know, Eddie Howe, normally he'd be going into a European game like this, like he did in Milan in particular, and kind of looking to shut up shop, but I don't think he can really afford to do that here. He might go in with a game plan of looking to keep it tight for the first 60 minutes and then look to nick something in the final half an hour. But yeah, I can't really see anything other than a PSG win. They are missing Zaire Emery, who's a long-term absentee now, and he's been phenomenal for them so far this season. But I just think they're going to have more than enough weapons here. And the boost of the over 1.5 goals is kind of the same. The other leg of the same match parlay I'm looking at here, which takes the price from -162 to -117. I think that's more than fair. PSG's last 9 games have all been over 2.5. And this is, we just need 2 goals in the match for this. I can see a PSG scoring at least 2 on their own. And so PSG to win and over 1.5 goals at -117.
RJ Will makes a good point, and it's one that I thought would happen against Chelsea at the weekend. I thought that we would get that Eddie Howe, Cholo Simeone, Atleti style that he tries against the bigger teams, and I went unders at the weekend and lost my money. But they are depleted. It is pretty much going to be the same side. I mean, you've gone for a similar play here, haven't you? What are your thoughts on Newcastle and Paris Saint-Germain heading into this one?
Yeah, this is a big match, as well alluded to. I mean, PSG is sitting in second place with 6 points. Newcastle's at the bottom with 4. PSG are seeking revenge here, you know, from the reverse fixture. A loss would obviously complicate some of their qualification chances. Winners of 7 out of the last 8. You know, Eddie Howe acknowledged, obviously, great win the other day, 4-1 win against Chelsea. Acknowledged the need for a strong appearance in this match, given all their injuries. It's tough. It's tough not to see anything but a PSG win here. I like Will's take. I actually like the PSG team total over 1.5, but I believe yesterday it was around 165, which was too low to take as a single bet. But the only thing against PSG here is their 2 out of their last 3 Champions League matches were losses. But the pedigree that they have, the home advantage, I like them to come up on top. And I think at -0.75 on the Asian handicapping, I could see them win by at least 1 and getting half the stake returned here.
It's a good play. It's a lean, incidentally, from RJ, as is Steve's thoughts on this one as well. This is a bet that we've played previously, didn't come up. Hopefully it will this time around. It's a lean as well, Steve.
It's a lean. Unfortunately, the price has halved since I advised. I've just been looking on the BetRivers website. It's Achraf Hakimi to have over 0.5 shots on target. And it's now at +125. It was at +220 when I put this up, which was outrageously high. It does show you how volatile these shot on target markets are. But watch out for him. The complete change of system this season suits him really well. He has been mentioned before. He actually averages the second most shots per game out of any PSG player domestically, only behind Mbappe. He's averaging roughly 1 shot on target in each contest. He's been getting himself on some free kicks occasionally. He's been cutting inside. He's far more dangerous. His numbers in terms of shots and shots on target have effectively doubled compared to last season. So under Luis Enrique, obviously he's had a completely different role, and it's just one to. I still think at plus money, to be fair, it's worth a nibble. In terms of the actual match, I agree with both boys' leans and Will's pick. I was going to be on PSG here, to be fair, on a handicap or something, but Newcastle always do things to scare me, and I've actually thought Chelsea would go and beat them at the weekend. I've got to be honest. It was a really good performance from Newcastle, and they have great bounce back ability under Eddie Howe. I don't know what it is. It's like when they're in the corner, they respond well, but it's completely different. St James's Park to the Parc de France. So I think PSG should get the job done, really. I think it could be comfortable, really, if they play at their best.
Let's keep with Tuesday matches. Barcelona-Porto comes under the spotlight next, 3 p.m. Eastern here. Barcelona minus 210, Porto plus 600. Feels like a fair price. Barca just 2 wins in their last 5. They're minus 500 to win Group H. I'm going to get the boys' thoughts on Barcelona in terms of winning the Champions League and progressing deep into the competition in just a second. But we have got a pick here from RJ. We dive into the prop markets once again. RJ, what's the play?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So sticking with the corners market, over 9.5 corners at minus 103. Barcelona's, I'd say, smooth progression is now a little uncertain after their defeat to Shakhtar. The upcoming match is going to be at Estadio Olympic, and it's obviously a crucial one for Group H. Both teams sitting with 9 points at the top of their Group H table. Recent form quickly. Barcelona's had a mixed bag. 1-1 draw against Rayo Vallecano over the weekend in La Liga, leaving them 4th in the table. They've won just 2 out of their last 5 matches in all competitions. Porto, right? A win would secure their spot in the knockout stages, and a draw could suffice depending on the outcome with Shakhtar. Barcelona's got a pretty long list of injuries. Firstly, a long-term absentees, first choice goalkeeper, and basically looking at the corner statistics here, Barcelona at home over the last 25 matches average 11.42 corners per match, just around 8.5. It's 11.42 corners per match, which is around 67% of the time see over 9.5 corners. Porto on the road, their numbers are pretty drastic in terms of home and away. That's a little less on the road, but it's still a high amount. It's around 9.3 corners per match. So I looked at this based on the necessity for at least both teams to get a point out of this. I expect a more attacking style out of the Porto side. I expect that number to be a little higher than what it has been historically for corners. I would expect around 10, 11 corners in this match. Which would get us over the 9.5. And at minus 103, I thought this was a pretty fair price considering the match expectations and the statistics.
I don't know about you, Will, but I mean, I look at that plus 600 Porto, and I just think it looks a big price. As RJ rightly says, we've got Inaki Pena. Is he going to play in goal? I mean, he's a keeper I know little about, I must admit. And you've talked about their injury issues over the course of this season as well. There's some other significant absentees. I mean, could Porto be a play somehow? And do you think Barcelona at plus 1,600 are still priced on reputation a little bit when it comes to winning the Champions League?
I think I've heard Ter Stegen might actually try and play this game. He's looking to get some sort of injection to be able to play. It is a huge game for them. Iñaki Peña is a massive downgrade. Yes, all due respect to him. They're not playing at the Nou Camp either, their home games, which I think is kind of thrown them off a little bit this season. But the main factor with Barcelona has been the injuries they've suffered so far this season. They were missing Frankie de Jong and Pedri for long periods of time. And Gavi's just gone down, I think, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he's going to miss
ACL.
out.
He's out.
So, yeah, I mean, in that key part of the midfield, if you think about the midfield and Xavi's kind of system and setup there, it really is dependent on moving the ball quickly in midfield. And Gavi, Pedri and de Jong are all very important pieces in that. I think ideally he might even want to play Gavi in that kind of front three on the left side and then play the other three in midfield with one of Romeo or Fermin Lopez or Gundogan holding. So, that's been Barcelona's real problem this season, injuries, and it hasn't allowed Xavi to really play his full strength 11 very often. Would I back them at plus 1,600? Probably not, but I don't think I'd want to be against them either, because they do still have enough talent, more than enough talent there to be a formidable force. And despite poor form in La Liga, I see them qualifying from the group, probably topping the group. So yeah, I wouldn't be against them at that kind of big price either.
Steve, your brief thoughts on Barcelona and their progress or not this season?
Not for me, Dan. I think when we're talking about outrights, we've got to remember that the knockout round starts in February into March. So a lot can change with teams. Transfer window, players who are injured can come back. This applies to loads of teams, not just Barcelona. But that Xavi injury is what a pointless way to get injured against Georgia. I think at home, there was nothing really on that. It's. I also a bit worried about their home advantage. They're away from Camp Nou, and I think in the knockout rounds, home advantage is massive sometimes, isn't it? So just them little things, but the price reflects it, doesn't it? In the outright, you might look at that outright price and think, "Ooh, Barcelona, the plus 1,600. I'll have a piece of that." But ultimately, I'm not sure they get past the quarterfinals.
Okay, I'm going to give you a match bet, all of you, in just a second. But first of all, we're going to get Will's pick on Feyenoord Atleti, which is again Tuesday 3 p.m. And again, there's been one or two sort of price changes here running up to our recording of this. Feyenoord are plus 170, Atleti the favourites plus 160, draw plus 255. Feyenoord really good at home. Will, I thought that Feyenoord were a little bit unlucky in Madrid in the reverse of this fixture, and your play might reflect that. Talk us through what you like here.
Yeah, a little bit unlucky. They were incredibly unlucky. They won the XG battle 2.46 to 0.84. And they looked a threat every time they attacked. 17 shots to 7. This is, away in the Wanda Metropolitano. Not many teams go there and do that. So, yeah, I've been very, very impressed with Feyenoord so far this season and last season. They didn't deserve to lose away to Lazio either. We got fairly lucky with our Lazio draw no bet pick there. So they won the XG battle in that game. We know how strong they are at home. They comfortably beat both Lazio and Celtic. So Feyenoord on the draw no bet looked quite attractive to me, especially given the context of the group. I think Simeone might be happy with a draw there. Whereas Feyenoord really, really need to win. So I also kind of like overs here as well, really thinking about it. I think Simeone has been a different animal since the World Cup last season. I don't know what it was. Maybe he had time to reflect, but Atleti have been much more on the front foot and attacking since then, and they've carried that into this season, really, probably even built on that this season. So my official pick is Feyenoord on the draw no bet line, minus 103. So stake returned if there's a draw here. But I also quite like overs. I believe the line is 2.75, so it's quite attractive as well.
One quick question to all of you. If I said Atleti or Barca, who goes further? Who would you bet each of two? I know that Barcelona are slightly shorter in the outright market, 16-1. Atleti are 20s. Steve, which one would you have?
I'd go with Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, so would I. RJ, who'd you go with?
Yeah, I'd go with Atletico. Barcelona, their inconsistencies. The only thing I think they have going for them is what did the international break do? Clearly, Gavi going down didn't help. And that's why I think I'd stick with Atleti for their health purposes.
We can't see Will's Iniesta cushion, so maybe he's going to go with Atleti as well. It's out of shot for this one.
Just for the record, it's not a cushion. It is a shirt. I think it's just the way it's kind of like,
I thought it was just a cushion. There was a cushion on your couch. Obviously not. Sorry. Take it all back. Atleti or Barcelona?
I'll take Barcelona.
Oh,
I think they are still
I
a better
knew you
team.
would.
And I know Gavi's just such a big piece there, but they're the better team for me in my eyes.
I have to get my Atleti shirt out somewhere. I think I've got one. Let's move on. Again, we go Tuesday. This is Young Boys Svena Zvezda. RJ's got a thought in this one for us. Both can't qualify from Group G. Battle for Europa League spot here, RJ. If Young Boys win, They do make the secondary competition in Europe. They're favourites at plus 106. What's your thoughts here? What's the play on young boys Crvena Zvezda?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Going back to the prop market, young boys versus Crvena Zvezda, also known as Red Star Belgrade. Shots on target over 8.5 at minus 120. This match will be played in Bern. Both teams seek their first win in the group, with the victor securing the Europa League spot. Recent performances, both teams have been pretty steady for the most part. I'd lean this slightly towards young boys here, as the odds suggest. The only concern I have here is Cedric Itten. He was out against Zurich over the weekend. I'm not sure his status, to be fair, but that's going to obviously be a contributor to this shots on target. He's one of their key top men in the forward spot. First leg, young boys almost clinched their first Champions League win of the season, denied by a late equalizer. Red Star Belgrade got that towards the latter part of the match. As I stated, both sides have just earned 1 point. And over the weekend, Crvena Zvezda got a 2-1 win against Vojvodina. Young boys went down 3-1 against Zurich, so they'll be looking for some redemption here. But getting to it, statistics here. This is what drove and led me to this play. At home over the last 25 matches, young boys averaged 26 shots. 9 of those are 9.5 on target. On the road, Red Star or Crvena Zvezda, 29 shots, 11.8 shots on target. So just around 12 shots on target. So average this out, take that in consideration. It's about 10.6 or so shots on target per match. And again, at over 8.5 here, which I found that line to be a bit surprising. I think this has a little bit of cushion based on the statistics. Both sides are really fighting for the Europa League spot. What's the motivation? Do they really want to get to the Europa League? I mean, they get paid a salary to perform regardless. So I think at over 8.5 at minus 120, even with the status of top striker Cedric Itten, I still like this play to come through.
Yeah, I think there's certainly for clubs like that, just getting into Europa League knockout stages gets them a little bit of TV money, doesn't it? The further they get, the better it is for the clubs. There's no doubt it's a factor. One final Tuesday thought. It is a lean. This is Will, who has got a thought on Celtic's game against Lazio. I mean, Celtic need to win this one, don't they, Will?
Yeah, they do, and that kind of plays against the narrative of my pick, really. Well, it's not a pick, it's a lean, rather. Under 2.75 at minus 114. I've just noticed this trend with Italian teams, particularly when they're playing at home. A lot of money seems to come for the unders. We've seen it with Milan in there, particularly their home game against Newcastle, and Lazio previously as well. I think we've spoken about Lazio unders on this show before, and the kind of perception around Sarri that he's an attacking coach. But if you watch Lazio games, especially in Europe, like the Feyenoord game, for example, which was much tighter than expected, Sarri teams don't really move the ball particularly quickly between the lines. And it often leads to kind of under-centric game. And so I think the line here at 2.75 is just too high. On the other hand, yes, Celtic need to push for the win, but their team news is negative for the overs and positive for the unders. Maeda got sent off versus Atleti in the last round. Will be missing, and new signing Palma, so that's 2 of their starting 3 forwards will be out for this game. Perhaps they'll be forced to set up more defensively and go to 5 at the back. I think Lazio will be happy nicking this 1 or 2-0. So under 2.75 at minus 114 is fairly attractive. Almost made it to being a pick.
What level are Lazio playing at the minute, Will, and RJ as well? I can't work this team out. I mean, they just lost to Salernitana in Serie A, and they're awful. I mean, I looked at the Asian handicap here, and it was Lazio -1. That almost looks a bit of a generous price, but I don't trust them anymore.
Yeah, for me, they're not performing at a particularly high level. Their underlying stats aren't great. I tend to prefer backing them in kind of bigger games against bigger quote unquote teams where they can, implement Sarri's game plan of being quite defensive, possession based, and where you're getting a much bigger price for that. So draw no better at home. Well, not really home, but home in the derby. I thought was fairly attractive. Likewise, on the European show, our hot dog, I believe, was Lazio to beat Fiorentina one week.
But rather than as a favourite, they're not maybe as reliable.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think just their identity suits them kind of more to being not really underdogs, but at least kind of playing against a team where, you know, they're not expected to win and to really be that open. That's just my take.
I think that, to your point, they're just very possession based, very defensive, low scoring matches. I think they got 29 goals through 13 matches to start the season. Cyril Immobile is starting to heat up a little bit, so I'd keep an eye on that. That could obviously, help them get back to the form I think we're used to. But to be fair, Will, I actually was looking at this play as well for an official play, but I just can't go back to the unders officially. But I do very much like this. I think this has the makings of a 1-0.
If RJ's leaning unders, it's a good play.
Ciro Immobile is their only goal scorer since late October. No one else has scored for them. Yeah. I think they massively overachieved last season. I don't think they were really. They took advantage of a very strange Serie A campaign with the points deduction for Juventus and some big underachieving.
Did you know Ciro Immobile once won the Golden Shoe? It was a random fact I came across this week. I can't remember exactly what year it was.
Well, they got as in the most goals in Europe.
It's some award that's.
Is that the Golden Shoe?
Yeah, it's some award. It's a. I'm going to talk about it more in the Europa show. But
okay, I think it's the most goals in Europe, but there's a factor, isn't it? So if you play in Estonia and you
you factor it in,
goals,
it's
but he did win one goal is only worth like a third of a goal or something like that.
Kind of surprised me that.
I think he's won the Capocannoniere for 3 or 4 times. I think Daniele listed him as a fair play. We've talked about Lazio far too long. Wednesday, Galatasaray versus Manchester United. This has to be, for me, best bet of the week. United, RJ, have been chaotic in Europe. 3 of their 4 games over 4.5 goals, let alone over 2.5 or 3.5. And for the most part in the Premier League as well this season. But they were much better against Everton yesterday. Give us your thoughts on Galatasaray, Manchester United, Wednesday, 12:45 Eastern. United are the favourites, plus 155.
Yeah, I'm targeting goals here. I had a hard time doing anything but that in this match. Over 2.75 goals at minus 124. Galatasaray are going to need the home support for this one. Sitting at and Manchester United are currently at the bottom of the table, which is, as you stated, kind of a reflection of their recent form in general. They sit with 3 points. Galatasaray with 4 points. Manchester United's recent performances, over the weekend, they bagged a 3-0 win yesterday against Everton. Shout out to Garnacho for probably goal of the year.
Goal of the season.
At this point, and maybe goal of the season. Very beautiful bicycle kick, and then tributed with the Suey at the end there. Then they had a 1-0 victory over Luton, 1-0 victory against Fulham. And then between that, they had a 4-3 defeat to FC Copenhagen, and then a 3-0 loss against Newcastle in the EFL Cup. So Ten Hag's side, as I stated, currently at the bottom. They'll be relying on, their typical stars like Rashford and even Garnacho here to get them across. Regular team news. Galatasaray are loaded with, a squad full of former Premier League players. I think Zaha is going to be key here for them. And, looking at the recent form, where these 2 teams sit in the table, 3 points is a must. There is no other way around it here. Galatasaray, depending on the outcome of the Copenhagen match, they still would like to see some goals here, but I can just see an extremely open match. I think Manchester United are starting to get back into some kind of consistency here, and I have a hard time not seeing 4, 5, maybe even 6 goals here. I'd even consider this type of, and I wouldn't do this normally in general, let alone Champions League plays, but I'd consider like 2.75, maybe even 3.5 here at plus money to try to.
This is the thing, though, Arjo, isn't it? If we just go for the over 2.75, are we leaving money behind here? I mean, we should go for the bigger total, shouldn't we?
I really do. I could expect to see 2+ goals in the first half. I'd even look at over 1.5 in the first half here. I'm going to probably post something else publicly too, in some kind of angle, because I think there's money to be made in this match, and I just think goal friendly is the way to go here, personally.
Will, what do you have a goal rating for this match? I mean, what would the line be as far as your numbers are concerned? And is over 2.75 a value play, and indeed subsequent bigger score lines?
Yeah, I do have a number. I'm not sure exactly what it is off the top of my head. I believe it's kind of fairly in line with where the market's trading, but yeah, just intuitively, it does seem like this is a game that sets up for goals, right? It's hard to be on, very uncomfortable being on unders with Galatasaray. So yeah, I quite agree intuitively with RJ's pick.
And Steve, you've got a lean in this one for a former United player at Gala.
Wilfried Zaha to score at any time in the game, now at plus 275. And you know what? I very nearly got involved in Galatasaray here. Draw no bet, or even on the money line.
I think the chaos from United has gone though after that performance.
But they've got a lot of.
I mean, I backed Everton yesterday.
But I do actually, a draw is a good result for Galatasaray. That's why it kind of put me off them a little bit. But I like the goals as well. But Zaha scored at Old Trafford in the previous game. He's actually in good form. He scored 4 goals in his last 4 in all competitions. Now, if we look at the United team news, now I think Wan-Bissaka will start this game, but he hasn't been fully fit recently. He's looked off the pace. I think they'll target that side of the field. Luke Shaw's back at left back for United, and he's a pretty solid option. If I was doing a game plan, I'd be going the other flank. And Zaha, I think there's going to be a lot of attention on Icardi, and rightly so. And that just might leave Zaha free. And he'll be keen to score against his former club, believe you me. So I just looked a big price. If there's gonna be goals in this game, let's look at some goal scorers. So Wilf Zaha for me.
One more game to preview before we get some best bets. Real Sociedad against Salzburg, Wednesday, 3 p.m. La Real through to the knockout stages. They've been brilliant at home this season. And last, Steve, you are predicting another positive display. They are minus 205 on the money line. We've got to go elsewhere for the value.
I'm taking Real Sociedad on a -1 Asian handicap here at -121. I just think they're a lot better than Salzburg, Dan. If you look at them, especially at the 2 home matches they've played in the Champions League, the crowd has been absolutely buzzing, hasn't it? Like this is a fortress on a European night. They're going crazy. They battered Inter Milan week 1, and they were very unlucky not to beat them. Only a late equaliser, and they comfortably got past Benfica twice. Now I think actually Benfica are better than Salzburg, really. The only points Salzburg have got were in that freak game in game week 1 where they faced Benfica with 10 men for about 80 minutes. I think they were given like 2 or even 3 penalties off the top of my head. I've looked at Salzburg's metrics and stats. They have quite a lot of shots, but low XG. So they're shooting wildly from nowhere. I don't think they're that great. Real Sociedad are a pretty good side. You know, they've got some really top quality individuals as well who can score goals from anywhere. So, you know, the pressure's off them. They're qualified and they want to win the group now. And I personally believe that it's going to be simply far too strong for a Salzburg side. And the -1 Asian handicap, I don't mind a push, but I think it's going to be a comfortable home win.
La Real for a comfortable home win in their game against Salzburg. Real Sociedad already through to the knockout stages. Let's get some best bets. Will, what's your best play? Match day 5 of the Champions League.
I think I'm going to go with Feyenoord draw no bet -103. So yeah.
Don't sound too confident with your best bet.
That's a really brave one. I've seen a lot of people I've seen a lot of people loving Atletico Madrid, and that is a real typical Will White against the great.
It's an uncomfortable. Is it? Yeah, I'm going to say, is it your favourite uncomfortable bet?
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit about Steve's pick actually. I do like I love Real Sociedad, but I was just thinking about whether they're going to rotate here. I wouldn't be surprised if they rested maybe Kubo and some of the midfield. But
do you want to face the likes of Man City though next round?
Yeah, or
potentially someone a little bit weaker?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm never quite sure if coaches think about that, but I mean it's yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the one thing that would hold me back because, like you say, the atmosphere there has been unreal, particularly in the last match against Benfica, and they're really on the crest of a wave right now. And they do have quite a deep squad, though. So Yeah, but anyway, back to my best bet is
Yes.
Feyenoord, and I'll say it with a bit more conviction this time. Feyenoord
There it
to
is.
bet -103.
RJ, what's your best bet?
Mine's fairly easy. Galatasaray versus Manchester United over 2.75 goals. And as we discussed, consider sprinkling even some on over 3.5 at +150 here.
Yeah, I mean, that's my best bet of the week as well. If I said that to Nigel on the other show, he'd say that's absolutely jinxed it and boxed it. Hopefully,
Yeah.
for us. Steve, what's your best play?
Yeah, well, considering I have issues with Dortmund, and the best bet has got to be Real Sociedad on the -1 Asian handicap.
Does that
I'm
mean that you
comfortable-
really want it to be Dortmund? Milan.
Really, I would love Milan to beat them. I mean, I'm going to be anti-Dortmund in a lot. I'm going to be against Steve Wyss is going to be against Dortmund a lot in the next few weeks.
An irrational hatred of Dortmund. Don't mind that
Okay.
one.
Berlin.
That's yeah, exactly. It's moved from Berlin to Dortmund. That wraps up Betting Weekly Extra Time Champions League edition. Many thanks to Steve, Will, and RJ. Later this week, the boys will be tackling the Europa League, so watch out for that and all the best bets in that particular competition. For now, though, from all of us, it is goodbye.